By the time a farm kid turned 12 in 1955, he'd already operated machines that could take his hand off. No training manual, no safety guard. His father showed him once, and after that, it was his job. These are the 15 most dangerous machines he learned to run. Subscribe before we start. Number 15, Side Delivery Hay Rake, the entry-level machine, the first real piece of equipment most farm kids ever operated, usually around age 8 or 9. The rake sat behind the tractor on a steel tongue and used rotating teeth to sweep cut hay into long windrows for baling. The kid's job was driving the tractor in straight lines across the field while the rake worked behind him. It sounded safe. It wasn't. The rotating teeth could grab a foot, a pant leg, or a hand faster than a child could react. But compared to everything else on this list, the side delivery rake was the gentle introduction. Number 14, Manure Spreader, a PTO-driven wagon with spinning beater bars across the back that flung manure across a field as the tractor moved forward. A kid drove the tractor while the spreader emptied behind him. The beater bars spun with enough force to throw a chunk of frozen manure 60 feet. The first lesson was mechanical. The second was practical. Never turn downwind. Number 13, Hay Elevator, an inclined chain conveyor, usually about 30 feet long, propped against the barn at a steep angle. Hay bales went on at the bottom and rode the chain to the top, where they dropped into the loft. A kid's job was up top. He stood in the loft in 100-degree heat and stacked 50-pound bales as fast as the elevator delivered them. If he fell behind, the bales piled up at the top and jammed the chain. If he stood too close to the drop point, a bale coming over the top could knock him backward off the loft edge. The hay elevator taught a kid to work fast and stand in the right place. Both lessons came with consequences. Number 12, Disc Harrow, a set of concave steel discs, each one about 18 inches across, arranged in rows behind the tractor. The disc cut into the soil and broke up clods after plowing. There was no seat on the implement, no operator's position at all. A kid drove the tractor, and the harrow followed. The danger was in hooking and unhooking. The hitch pin had to be set while the tractor was backed into position, and a 10-year-old standing between a moving tractor and a row of steel discs had no margin for error. One wrong move from the driver, and the discs rolled over whatever was between them and the tractor. Number 11, Stationary Engine, the hit-and-miss gasoline engine, a cast-iron single-cylinder engine with an exposed flywheel that weighed more than the kid turning it over. No electrical starter. You spun the flywheel by hand. If the engine kicked back, the flywheel reversed direction with your hand still on it. The engine powered everything on the farm through exposed flat belts, the corn sheller, the pump jack, the feed grinder, the buzz saw. Open belts, open pulleys, no guards. A kid learned to start it, adjust the fuel mixture while it ran, and keep every part of his body away from the belt line. The flywheel alone could break an arm. Number 10, hand-cranked cream separator. The same machine from our last video, but the story here is who operated it. On most dairy farms, the cream separator was a child's job every morning before school. The crank drove the bowl through a gear ratio that multiplied hand speed to 6,000 to 8,000 RPM inside the housing. If the gearing seized or the crank slipped, the handle kicked back hard enough to sprain a wrist or break a finger. A 10-year-old stood on a stool, cranked the separator, and poured fresh milk into the bowl while it spun. If his sleeve caught the gearing, his hand went with it. Number 9, Silage Chopper, a set of spinning steel knives inside a housing fed by an open chute. Corn stalks went in whole and came out as chopped silage, blown through a pipe into a wagon or a silo. A kid fed the chute. He stood at the intake and pushed stalks in by hand. The knives were less than 3 feet from his fingers. A jam meant the stalks backed up, and the instinct was to push harder. The silage chopper didn't care what it cut. It cut whatever came through the chute at the same speed, regardless of whether it was a cornstalk or a hand. And this is the machine that put more farmers in the hospital than any other implement in the field. Number 8, Sickle Bar Mower, a 5-foot reciprocating blade mounted to the side of a tractor, 1 inch off the ground, exposed on 3 sides. The blade was a series of triangular steel teeth that slid back and forth through stationary guards at over 1,000 strokes per minute. It cut hay, grass, weeds, and anything else at ground level. The kid drove the tractor. The danger was in turning at the end of each row. The mower bar extended 4 to 5 feet to the right of the tractor, and a kid had to swing the tractor wide enough to clear fence posts, rocks, ditches, and terrain drops without catching the bar on something that would snap it sideways. A broken sickle bar through steel teeth. And if a kid left the tractor seat for any reason while the PTO was engaged, the blade kept cutting whether he was in the seat or not. Sickle bar mowers were one of the most common causes of serious field injuries on American farms. Number 7, grain auger, an open Archimedes screw inside a tube, lying at ground level at one end and angled up into the top of a grain bin at the other. Grain was shoveled or dumped into the open intake at the bottom, and the spinning screw carried it up and into the bin. A kid shoveled grain into the auger hopper. The opening was unguarded. The screw turned at the bottom of the hopper in plain sight. A foot, a hand, or a shovel blade that touched the screw went into the auger the same way the grain did. Grain auger injuries were among the most common child farm accidents in the 1950s, and the machine looked so simple that most kids never thought of it as dangerous until it was. Number 6, hay baler, a PTO-driven machine that picked up hay from a windrow, compressed it into rectangular bales with a reciprocating plunger, tied each bale with twine, and kicked it out the back. The plunger operated with enough force to crush a cinder block. The pickup teeth at the front spun continuously. A kid either drove the tractor pulling the baler or rode a wagon behind it stacking bales as they came out. Baler plugs were common. The hay jammed, the plunger stalled, and someone had to clear the chamber. If the kid cleared the plug without disengaging the PTO, the plunger could restart without warning. It didn't matter how strong you were. The plunger was stronger. Number 5, Threshing Machine, a community operation. Neighbors brought their crews and equipment together for harvest, and the threshing machine was the centerpiece. A massive belt connected the machine to a tractor or a stationary engine. Inside, spinning cylinders beat grain off the stalk. Straw went out one side, grain went out the other. A kid worked the crew. He pitched bundles into the feeder, hauled grain away in wagons, or kept the straw pile clear. The exposed drive belt alone could kill. The feeder pulled material in continuously and didn't distinguish between a bundle of wheat and a pair of gloves. Dust filled the air thick enough to choke. Threshing day was the most dangerous day of the farming year, and kids as young as 10 worked it alongside grown men. Number 4, buzzsaw, a circular saw blade, usually 24 to 30 inches in diameter, mounted on a frame and driven by the tractor's PTO shaft through a flat belt. No blade guard, no riving knife, no push stick. You picked up a log, set it on the table, and pushed it into the blade with your hands. A kid's job was feeding logs or pulling the cut pieces clear. The blade had no brake. When the PTO disengaged, the blade kept spinning long after the power stopped, fast enough to cut the entire time. The buzz saw was the most visually terrifying machine on the farm, and every man who grew up using one has a story about the day he almost lost his fingers. Number 3, hay fork and rope, the hay trolley system from our last video, but the job that belonged to the kid. Someone had to drive the horse or tractor that pulled the draft rope, hoisting half a ton of loose hay from the wagon to the peak of the barn. The kid drove. His father set the forks in the hay and yelled when to pull. The kid had to start the horse at the right speed, keep the tension steady, and stop at the exact moment The load locked into the trolley. Pull too slow, and the load didn't reach the track. Pull too fast, and the forks hit the trolley hard enough to snap the rope or break the track hardware. A broken rope under 500 pounds of tension whipped back with enough force to kill anyone standing in his path. The kid was 10. His father trusted him to get it right. Number 2, corn picker, snapping rolls, 2 steel rolls spinning in opposite directions that grabbed a corn stalk between them, stripped the ear off, and pulled the stalk through. The ear went into a wagon. The stalk went onto the ground. If a stalk jammed between the rolls, a man's instinct was to pull it free by hand. The rolls grabbed faster than a human can react. Studies measured it at 1500ths of a second. That's twice as fast as the fastest human reaction time. A hand that touched the rolls went between them. The corn picker had the worst hand injury record of any machine in American agriculture. Hands, fingers, arms, all taken by a machine that a kid helped operate during harvest because there wasn't enough labor to keep him away from it. Number 1, the PTO shaft, the power takeoff. A splined steel shaft spinning at 540 revolutions per minute that extended from the back of every tractor on every farm in America. It powered the baler, the mower, the spreader, the chopper, the buzz saw, every implement on this list that didn't have its own engine. The shaft spun at 9 full turns per second, exposed, unguarded, running at waist height on most tractors. If a pant leg, a shirt tail, a jacket drawstring, or a strand of loose hair touched the shaft, it wrapped and pulled. At 540 RPM, a human body was wound around the shaft before the brain registered what was happening. There was no letting go. There was no pulling free. The PTO shaft killed hundreds of farm workers in the 20th century, including children. It was the single most dangerous component on the American farm, and for most of the 1950s, it ran without a shield on nearly every tractor in the country. A kid walked past it 10 times a day. His father told him once to stay clear. After that, it was on him. Every machine on this list was operated by a child because the farm couldn't run without the child operating it. There weren't enough adults. There wasn't enough money to hire help. The work had to be done, and the kid was there. He didn't get a training certificate. He didn't sign a waiver. He got shown once, and the next morning, it was his job. That was the deal. And most of them made it through without losing a finger. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe and watch the next video above.